When we landed at Galapagos, I had a moment where I felt like documentary filmmakers didn't have to do a lot of searching for wildlife. It was all around us. The first time we went into the town of Puerto Ayora, I was stunned to see marine iguanas as well as hungry brown pelicans, seals lying around, and more. And I won't go into more detail than this, but will add for the record that I got extremely bad food poisoning that had me out of commission for a full day.
That was rough. I have a cast iron stomach I'm quite proud of, honed on the streets of Taipei and Beijing, and even I was a little under the weather. But we made it through and saw so much. Every island had different birds, tortoises, marine iguanas, lava lizards, and they even had different cacti, plants, landscapes, and so much more.
Near Puerto Ayora, I really liked the scenic walk to Tortuga Bay. It was so nice to be surprised by a Galapagos tortoise.
I think we surprised her as well. It was like a mile-long walk through a natural preserve with only one path cutting through miles of tall cacti and brush and really rough, dry stuff. Nary a person around. And it smelled wonderful, like hot, sun-baked rock and the sweet wood of the Palo Santo tree. And all you hear is bird song, dry branches rattling against each other, and all of a sudden, there's a rustle in the bush about 3 feet from the path, and what do we see but a tortoise starting and recoiling into her shell. I felt bad about that, like we were breaching the peace. Puerto Ayora had its own brewery, though.
Yeah, I was surprised to learn the history of people on Galapagos just writ large. Lots of shipwrecks, people who fled other countries, a former prison, military base during World War II.
Yeah, it's definitely a very challenging place to live on, to say the least. At the time that we took our trip, I was reading the book Floriana, which is a first-hand account written by a German settler, Margaret Wittmer. And it was a fascinating account of trying to settle an island from scratch, especially as remote as the island is. I think here's a good way to view it, or a line from the book that I liked a lot. We looked at each other, my husband and I, knowing without a word spoken that we were both thinking the same thing. There's no going back.
All right, I'm with you.
Note to self, when you write where you're from, write it legibly.
Part of living there was the receiving and delivering of packages, which took place at Post Office Bay. Today, it's just for tourists to put their postcards in. We have a couple postcards we have to deliver, and one day maybe we'll receive the ones we wrote back. Actually, that means we actually can't move.
We're gonna have to move one day. We'll just have to make sure that we do update our forward addresses with the post office.
I guess we didn't think of that through when we addressed them. When visiting all these islands, the only way to see it is via cruise sanctioned by the Ecuadorian government.
That totally makes sense, especially now that we've been there. You don't want lots of tourists running all over the islands and ruining everything.
The boat was nice, small, and I really like watching the sunset while drinking blended maracuyas? Is that right?
Maracuyas, yeah.
Maracuyas, a species of passion fruit.
The boat was not glamorous at all, but the staff was so nice. They bent over backwards to do everything they could for us. The boat did its job, and that was to get us everywhere we needed to go. When we arrived at the first island, I'd like seeing the frigate birds, or the pirate birds, as the guides called them. They had big red throat sacs they would inflate. They looked like balloons floating in the wind.
Some of those throat sacs were inflated as large as the birds.
So, turns out we found out that they are called pirate birds because they steal food from birds sometimes in mid-air.
If I saw a large red balloon coming toward me, I might give up my food as well.
Attack! There was also the day that we saw the blue-footed boobies for the first time.
I was giddy with excitement. I love seeing the flamingos, and although I didn't capture any footage of it, well, I think I did, but I can't find it. Maybe I'll have it, and then this sentence won't make any any sense at all. Anyways, we saw them flying together in the air, which is apparently pretty rare.
I felt like that island and lagoon had the prettiest landscape. All I had ever wanted to see in the Galapagos was the blue-footed booby and its dance. It's like one of the first things I ever learned about the islands, and all I talked about for months on end at work and at home with friends was the blue-footed booby dance, and I would even mimic it to demonstrate it, lifting my feet up.
You gonna do it now?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's tough to see, I guess.
That's true. Lost in translation. Although I do hate to be all pessimistic about the blue-footed booby, but I've got 3 hilarious gripes to talk through.
3? Okay, well, there's no blue-footed booby here to represent the species, so you're all alone to share your grapes.
First of all, the blue-footed boobies were like, "Hi there, hello, welcome, have a look at my beautiful nest." And I was like, "Ooh, a blue-footed booby, so gentle and calm. Sure, I'll take a look at your nest." And your nest is a giant, huge ring of white poop. That's it?
You have to take your shoes off before entering.
Not even like a leaf. Secondly, these are creatures which very obviously do not have any predators. They appear to choose nesting locations like you would choose to drop off your socks. This spot will do. No one's gonna notice it's here anyway. They're on the ground, wide open, with nothing to guard them, except again, that ring of poop.
It's a fortified ring of poop.
It just makes no sense. One was literally in the middle of a path on one of the islands. Third, the babies are so cute, and they look totally normal and floofy. There's this phase they go through between being a baby and adult, though, which then appears to be a disastrous form of avian puberty. The teenagers look like blobs of limbs and feathers on the ground like a mangled mess.
That they indeed look deceased may actually be their warning to others. Beware, what mangled me will mangle you too.
Except their mothers are watching over them like, what is this thing I have brought into this world? And we're watching like, OMG, is it dead? Is my first sighting of the blue-footed booby of a dead chick? And then it lifts its head from the ostrich head in the ground angle it was contorted into, and you realize it was sleeping? Like, how is that a comfortable position?
I'm glad you were here to get all 3 issues off your chest.
That felt good.
Although the blue-footed booby has some puzzling interior design and questionable parenting skills, its dancing sets a high bar. We weren't there for mating season, but at the very end, we got to see the dancing in action. I guess it's always mating season in the Galapagos.
It was so fun to watch, and we felt very lucky. They were showing off their blue feet to prove that they are worthy and healthy mates. The bluer the feet, the better the booby is at hunting for sardines and anchovies.
I also enjoyed seeing the red-footed boobies, who appeared to enjoy resting in bushes, as well as the Nazca boobies with their masked faces. The Nazca boobies were a bit more put together, I felt.
Except the one who decided an unsturdy branch of a spindly shrub was a suitable location for a nest consisting of 4 twigs on the side of a cliff. I seem to have a lot of questions about parenting. Or Darwin. Anyway, so long. As we are talking about birds and mating dances, I want to mention my favorite, which was the albatross. Not only was I so in awe of the size of these birds,
Especially when one spread its wings to intimidate us.
indeed, their mating dance was like nothing I've ever seen before.
Certainly, there's no ballet equivalent to Swan Lake for the albatross.
It would be a lot of nose kisses, bowing, and swaying side to side very quickly. On second thought, the nose kisses were almost like they were fencing with their beaks or playing patty cake with their beaks like kids do on the playground. Lots of rapid-fire clicking and impressive cawing into the air.
It was interesting to see 3 of them dancing at the same time.
Interesting is a word, yes.
I like how our guide told us this was rare, and they were not supposed to be doing that because albatrosses mate for life. I couldn't tell at that moment if the guide was letting on her personal beliefs or actual historical observations of the birds.
I almost felt like she was saying, no, look away, look away. It was incredible to see them, though. When they took off, their wings were so stable they looked like gliders in the air.
In late June 2018, just before our vacation, the Sierra Negra volcano erupted. I was excited. Jessica was not. This volcano is located on Isabella Island and is one of the most active in the region, having erupted in 2005 and 1979 previously. So, we had an amazing time to see the volcano in person.
I have to admit, I was rather tired.
So, we were there to see the Sierra Negra around 4 or 5 in the morning on our way to another part of Isabella. The pilot of the ship told us the night before that we could wake up for it. I woke up, saw it in the distance, and thought it was pretty spectacular.
You made that clear. You were quite loud. I was so tired.
But then, the ship turned and headed directly for the volcano out of our way. And as we got closer, we actually got to see the lava spewing out of the earth, the lava pouring into the ocean, and how vast a region the lava covered.
All I wanted was to go back to bed. And then the boat turned to head in an area to go look for penguins later, and I went back to sleep.
The Galapagos Islands is located on the Galapagos hotspot, where a lot of volcanoes form, then go dormant to create islands, and then eventually get eroded by the ocean and disappear. It's a unique part of the Earth because there are 3 tectonic plates which meet near but not exactly next to one another. The Cocos, Nazca, and Pacific plates all form the Galapagos Triple Junction. As a result, there's a lot of seismic and volcanic activity in the area.
I think one of the documentaries we watched described it as each of these islands sitting on a conveyor belt, and the creatures living on them having adapted to that island's progress. I like that description. The Galapagos tortoise shells were fascinating as they were all different sizes depending on what the circumstances or what the climate was on each island.
It was neat seeing them in the wild.
I did, as stated earlier, feel sorry walking near them though because they were so sensitive to sound and vibrations on the ground. They'd hide their heads if you walked behind them.
I love the tortoise crossing signs, and then didn't love them as much when we did have to wait for the tortoise to cross the road.
Tempting to ask you, why did the tortoise cross the road?
Oh boy.
Fine, it's a joke. I won't. There's nothing to do but wait. That tortoise was there first.
Seeing the Galapagos Breeding Center was a nice way of seeing the differences between all the tortoises and to see their full life cycle.
And then there was the mating in action.
Well, that was a journey.
Bow chicka wow wow. Anyway, I loved seeing the tortoises. They were very, very beautiful.
It was also cool to see all the different marine iguanas. We got to see a few swimming in the ocean, but for the most part, they were all lazily hanging out, blowing salt out of their noses.
That was really interesting. And they were all different colors depending on which island we were on. Yellow, black, red. Now, they were definitely in mating season, and there was that moment when one iguana started chasing another.
I tried to run away as fast as I could.
You were not as fast as that potential mate. They hissed at you. Come to think of it, first the seal, now the iguana. You got a lot of close encounters on this trip.
There were even times when you ran at me. The lava lizards were also varied in color across each island.
But they were all the same in that they wanted to show off their might. And they would do these little lava lizard push-ups when you stopped and looked at them. They were so cute.
I'm sure the lava lizard would feel insulted by having such a display of strength and masculinity called cute.
Maybe he just needs to find a mate who also thinks it's cute.
Indeed, Galapagos was full of cute animals. Terrifying parenting habits, thieving birds, fantastic mating dances, varying plant life, and of course, a honeymoon cake for us.
Yay! Cake!
We saw most of the southern islands, and one day, not soon, and definitely without kids because it's too expensive, I'd love to go back and see the northern islands. Until then, this is what it was like for us to visit the Galapagos Islands.
Yay!